Hello and welcome to another live episode of the League One Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. It's myself again this evening, David, joined with Ben, the resident Ipswich fan co-host of the show. So thank you very much again, Ben, for joining me this evening. What we'll do is we've had plenty of games over the last couple of days. Mainly on Saturday, we had a full lot, and then also on Tuesday night, I had a full run of fixtures as well. So I'll take us through the scores before we jump into the big talking points. So we had on Saturday, Bolton 4, Wimbledon 0, Cambridge 2, Accrington 0, Charlton 0, Oxford 4, Doncaster 1, Sheffield Wednesday 3, Gillingham 0, Plymouth 2, Ipswich 3, Burton 0, Sunderland 1, MK Dons 2, and then absolute goal fest down at Adams Park. Wycombe 5, Cheltenham Town 5. We had a few postponed games as well. Crewe Portsmouth, Fleetwood Lincoln, and Shrewsbury against Morecambe didn't survive the weather. And then Tuesday night, we had a full lot again. So Cambridge 2, Plymouth 0. We also had Charlton 0, MK Dons 2. Crewe 0, Oxford 1, Doncaster 2, Accrington 0, Gillingham 0, Wimbledon 0, Ipswich 0, Cheltenham 0, Rotherham 2, Morecambe 0, Shrewsbury 1, Portsmouth 2, Sunderland 1, Burton 1, Wycombe 1, Wigan 3, and finally Bolton 3, Lincoln 1, and Fleetwood was postponed again against Sheffield Wednesday, I think due to structural damage at the stadium. So plenty to jump in again with this week. As always, Ben's going to take us through the sides punching towards the top end of the table. We'll work our way down and finish off with the usual Q&A at the end. So, do you want to take us away, Ben, on the top half of the table teams?
Yeah, so first of all, and good evening to everybody who's joined us live in the chat. We're going to start off with first place Rotherham. We're going to be talking about their fixture on Friday. They drew 1-1 with Wigan Athletic. Oliver Rathbone scored in the 75th minute for them, though. Stephen Robinson got the first goal for Wigan Athletic in the game. It was quite a boring game, really. There were only 8 shots on target during the entirety of the game. 5 for Rotherham, 3 for Wigan. But first of all, David, these two teams are both high up the table. Rotherham first, Wigan Athletic second. Was this result surprising? Were you expecting to see more of a goal fest? Or do you reckon that both teams knew what they were coming up against?
Yeah, I think it's a case of I don't think both of these teams will be going to get promoted at the end of the season. These will be the top two. There's no doubt in my mind about that now whatsoever. It's just a matter of what order they finish in. And for me, I really enjoyed the game. It was a bit of a chess match, really. I don't think either side wanted to give too much away in this one. Neither side wanted to lose it. I don't think any side had much to lose in terms of worrying about third place catching them, because there's a big enough gap there now where there's a bit of a safety blanket in there. But it was very nice to see two Rochdale lads, ex-Rochdale lads, being on the score sheet in Humphreys and Rathbone. So that was nice to see. I'm hoping that obviously with them two going up, a nice little payday for Rochdale at the end of the season from a selfish point of view. But yeah, two really good teams, both cancelled each other out. But yeah, it was a really, really tense game, but really good to watch as a neutral.
So Rotherham are 6 points above Wigan at the moment. Do you expect Rotherham to go on and win the title?
Not necessarily, no. I think there's a long way to go with these two teams yet. Obviously, Wigan have got 2 games in hand and 6 points behind. So if they win both of those, level pegging them with Rotherham. So obviously, Rotherham 13 games to go, Wigan 15. So we've got a long way to go. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks, especially if Wigan do win both those games in hand. They'll be toe-to-toe, won't they? So yeah, it's far from a foregone conclusion. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens over the remaining third of games that's left.
And both goals were absolutely spectacular. If you have time, then take a look at Stephen Humphrey's goal from outside the box. It was an absolute stunner. And Rotherham, they also played on Tuesday night as well. A fairly predictable result this was. They beat managerless Morecambe 2-0. Just quickly, nothing really surprising from that result, is there, David?
Nah, it was more of a formality, that one, weren't it? Obviously, we'll talk about Morecambe a little bit later on the show, but obviously losing the manager on Tuesday morning to St Mirren is a big blow to them. But yeah, it was a formality for Morecambe, really. Not Morecambe, Rotherham, getting the 2-0 win. And yeah, it would never get in doubt, really, was it? As soon as that first goal went in, Morecambe were never getting back into that one.
So Ian Bradley, we Rotherham have a far better goal difference. Yeah, hopefully come the end of the season, that will play in your favour. I reckon it will do, to be honest. So now we're going to talk about Wigan, who are in second. We spoke about their game on Friday, but yesterday night they beat Wycombe 3-1 away from home. So, okay, we're going to quickly talk about Wigan, then Wycombe, because Wycombe are a talking point. Wigan, a great win for them. They will definitely have aspirations of staying in the automatics, won't they, David?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you'd have offered Wigan 4 points in the 2 games against Rotherham and Wycombe, I think they probably would have taken it, to be fair. Obviously, they'd have preferred 6, wouldn't they? Obviously, but yeah, I think 4 points, a really good return from them 2 games, 2 really tricky away trips for them. And I think Wigan passed the test with flying colours and looking really strong. And again, they're not going to fall at the top 2, Wigan now. And results like that last night just prove how good of a team they really are.
Do you reckon having goal scorers from all over the pitch plays to their benefit? Because Wigan, give them credit, their midfielders chip in, their wingers chip in. They have got a goal scoring team.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, they can rely on players coming off the bench as well. Obviously, Stephen Humphries hasn't been starting many games. He's been coming on, grabbing goals. I know McGuinness hasn't really set the world alight yet since his move. Callum Lang chipping a lot of goals. Will Keane, obviously Naylor chipping in last night as well. So there's goals coming from everywhere on that pitch. And obviously, if one striker's having an off day, there's someone else in that team that's going to step up and get the goals. But yeah, really good win. But Wycombe seem to have lost the way a little bit as of late. But you can't take it away from Wigan. It's a really good win when you put that result in isolation.
Yeah, so I was going to quickly move on to Wycombe. They're 7th at the moment in the table. We're not going to talk about their game against Cheltenham just yet. I'll save that for later on in the show. But Wycombe, do you reckon the fixture list is kind of catching up on them now? Do you think that their squad are maybe a bit tired?
It's hard to say because Wycombe keep having these patches where they'll drop away, and then when people start writing them off, then they come flying back at us. And I think the only concerning thing from a Wycombe perspective is the teams they've played, obviously prior to the Wigan game. So obviously Cheltenham at the weekend, they threw away a few leads there, and no disrespect to Cheltenham, but Wycombe, if they want playoff aspirations, they need to be beating Cheltenham. Really disappointing draw the week before against Lincoln. Dropped points home to Shrewsbury, and obviously the week before it was the MK Dons, which at the minute, no shame in losing to MK Dons the run they're on. So yeah, it's worrying times if you're as a Wycombe fan. Given the team's been playing, they're expecting more points, and yeah, they're hanging on for their playoff hopes for dear life now, really, aren't they?
And they sit 1 point below Sunderland, to a 6th and are in the playoffs. Wycombe will hopefully be hoping to capitalise on Sunderland's dip in form as of late. So that might be a bit of an understatement, though. But talking about Sunderland, we're now going to go to 3rd place, MK Dons. They beat Sunderland 2-1 away from home, with Mohamed Issa getting the first goal of the game for the Dons. Ross Stewart chipping in on the 59th minute for Sunderland, for Connor Wickham sealed off the game by coming off the bench and scoring the winner. So, okay, if you look at the stats of the game, it was actually quite one-sided. Okay, Sunderland had 7 shots compared to MK Dons' 6, but the MK Dons were far more crucial in front of goal, and they ultimately got 5 shots on target compared to Sunderland's 1. So MK Dons, they're playing really well. They won 2-0 away from home at Charlton last night. Do you reckon that they're a team who could potentially jump into the automatics should Wigan slip up?
I think the MK Dons can consider themselves like quite unfortunate. I think any other season they'd be well within a shout of the top 2, but the top 2 this year, Wigan and Rotherham, I should say, are too strong. MK Dons are only 3 points behind. Wigan have got 3 games in hand, so all they've got to do is win two out of the 3 of those, and they've built up a 9-point gap, and it's a big ask to overturn that. MK Dons be praying for Wigan to go on a really rough patch of form again, but I really don't see it. I think MK Dons will finish third and just obviously go into the playoffs in really good form. I think it's the best hope for them.
And Sunderland, of course, are winless in over 5 games. Things aren't going very well for them at all. And Alex Neil has had a rough start as Sunderland manager. I'm not really too sure what to ask you in regards to Sunderland because they're a difficult team to really judge at the moment. So, what are your thoughts on Sunderland? And I almost feel wrong for saying this because I don't think this will be the case. But do you reckon that they could bottle playoffs?
Yeah, it's a very strong possibility. Obviously, Alex Neil's waiting to get off the mark in his at the moment. So the longer that goes on, I think the more doubts that's going to creep in with regards to Sunderland. So it is worrying times for the folk at the Stadium of Light. So yeah, I keep seeing on banter pages and social media a lot of people having a laugh at Sunderland's expense, and after the Lee Johnson sacking the run they've been on, it is laughable, really. But there's enough quality in that squad for him to turn it round. Alex Neil's not a bad manager. He's a very, very good manager for this level. I think it's only a matter of time until they hit a run of form again. But the way things are going, it could be a little bit too little too late, and they might have to hang on to top six for dear life at the moment.
So do you reckon that the problem that Sunderland have is that they're playing too many young players? Because if you look at their recent squads, they've at least been playing 7 youngsters who've either been bought or loaned into the club or who have either come through their academy. So do you reckon that age is kind of being a benefactor against them at the moment?
I wouldn't say so. There's still plenty of experience in that Sunderland side when you just look at some of the players playing. So obviously, just taking last night's starting 11, you had Jermaine Defoe starting. Obviously, Ross Stewart's 25, very experienced for that age. Corey Evans, Matete, obviously he's still relatively young, but he's got a lot of experience already in League One with Fleetwood. So there's a lot of experience there, so they can't use that as an excuse. There is inexperience as well, but they've got a nice blend. I know in the past, when, especially in the League Two show, when we've talked about Colchester in the past, they've gone the complete other way where they've gone for what feels like a football in retirement home. Sunderland have got a nice blend. So yeah, I don't think that's really an excuse, really.
And thank you very much to everybody who's joined us in the chat tonight. Ian Bradley, Sunderland are the gift that keeps on giving. Yes, I would probably agree with you there. Of course, if you want to ask questions, get involved in the live chat and we will get on to them for the end of the show. But we're going to pick up the pace a little bit now. Oxford United are 4th at the moment. We talk about them most weeks, so we're not going to spend too long on them. But on Saturday, they beat Charlton 4-0 away from home. Charlton did pick up a red card in the game, though. The scorers for Oxford was Matt Taylor, who scored a brace, Sam Baldock, who used to play for Reading, if you remember him, and Cameron Brannigan on the 83rd minute. So real quickly, Oxford, they're in red-hot form at the moment. Yeah, they're almost a certainty, in my opinion, for playoffs.
Yeah, they're looking really good at the minute. 2 really good back-to-back wins. The Charlton wins a very, very impressive result when you look at that in isolation as well. Charlton, our bad side, been decent and the under Johnny Jackson so far, but that was a really, really good win. Obviously, Taylor getting another couple as well, which is always good to see for your primary scorer. So, yeah, things looking really good for Oxford, and Carl Robinson's done a tremendous job at the Kassam Stadium, and yeah, they for me will be top 6 coming in the season. The way they're playing, a couple of weeks ago I did have my doubts, but I've seen a lot of their highlights and the way they're playing at the minute. It's really, really good football to watch. So yeah, they are looking really good, aren't they?
Of course they are, and hopefully they do get into the playoffs, as I do like their manager very much. He's a great manager, Stephen Robinson is. So now we're going to go on to Plymouth, who at the moment sit sixth in the league table. They did lose last night, but before then they were on a 4-game unbeaten run. So on Saturday they went away from home at Gillingham 2-0 with Luke Jeffcott, who's a local lad to me, scoring a penalty on the 76th minute, and Jordan Garrick scoring on the 46th. We're going to quickly talk about last night's game, though, in regards to Plymouth, because they lost 2-0 away from home to Cambridge United. These results happen, don't they, in League One? You'll win one game and you'll lose the next against a disappointing opponent. So should Plymouth dwell on that result too much?
To be fair, it's probably the best and worst of Plymouth we've seen over the space of like 3-4 days into it. And I don't think the Cambridge result's that bad of a defeat as some might make out. Cambridge are a decent side, currently 12th in the table. They're not going to hit the playoffs by any stretch of the imagination, but if they were to finish 12th place now, it's a tremendous season for Cambridge. So no, there's no shame in losing to Cambridge, I guess. But yeah, Plymouth need to bounce back. For me, I don't think they're going to be in the top 6 at the end of the season. I think they're quite fortunate to be in there currently. I think they had that really good run of fixtures at the start of the month where they were playing a lot of teams in the bottom 4. I think that's kind of what's kept them in there currently. So yeah, I don't think Plymouth will be in the top 6 in the season, but they're there at the moment, so they'll be hoping to hang on to it.
Do you reckon that a lack of squad depth is kind of playing against Plymouth? Because when you look at their bench, they mostly have youngsters who are out on loan in either the Vanarama National League or non-league football last season. So do you reckon that their bench is something they should have looked at in the January transfer window?
Probably, I think it's an issue we've discussed most of the season, isn't it? You don't know if there's any restrictions in there in terms of getting players in, whether they've got the budget to have an in-depth squad or they've just focused on a really good starting 11 and hope no injuries and suspensions and things like that. But you do need, at this level, probably a good solid 18 players minimum to really get by. And Plymouth, they've got a really good starting 11, a couple of decent options off the bench, but they've not got the biggest of squads, have they, to really compete for a 46-game season.
Ian Bradley, Cambridge are a good side. Bonner is doing a fine job there. Yeah, agreed. And it was great to see Jack Lancaster score as well. He's a fantastic youngster. Good evening to Mark Baker as well. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Of course, get your questions in. We'll get to them at the end of the show. So we're now going to finish off with the final 3 teams that we're going to be talking about this week in regards to promotion contention. So, okay, we're now going to talk about Sheffield Wednesday, because when you look at them on paper, they've been in decent form. They lost on Saturday 3-1. No, they won. My bad. They won on Saturday because I got mixed up as they've had a few game postponements. They lost 2-0 against Rotherham a few weeks ago, and they, of course, won 3-1 away from home at Doncaster on Saturday. So, okay, their last game was a 3-1 victory. Callum Patterson scored in the 70th minute for them, Saudi Barahino and then Barry Bannon, and Dan Gardner got a penalty for Doncaster. So when you look at Sheffield Wednesday, they've actually had quite a few games postponed. Do you reckon that could potentially play against them in regards to, like form and having the run of games? Because when you look at it, they haven't actually played in quite a while.
It's one of those where I think if you're on a losing run, you don't want these games coming thick and fast. But on the flip side, if you're on good form, you don't mind playing Saturday, Tuesday constantly. The momentum then back-to-back fixtures can generate is fantastic if you are winning. But at the same time, when you're on that run, the last thing you want to be doing is playing every 3-4 days. Sheffield Wednesday are on a good run with the exception of that blip against Rotherham. So yeah, at the moment they'll be happy to be playing Saturday and Tuesday, I reckon, just simply because the run they're on, they can continue that momentum. But like I said, that can change quite quickly in the mood amongst Sheffield Wednesday fans, like dreading games every other day, pretty much, if it does come to that.
So they play Charlton on Saturday, and then they're at home, to Burton on Tuesday. 2 winnable games, in my opinion, 2 quite generous games. Do you reckon that they need to get 6 points from those games to stand any chance of getting into the playoffs?
No, I think with Sheffield Wednesday, they've got the games in hand. There's a long way to go. I think I don't see them as must-win games, but I'm just looking at their fixtures between now and the end of March. They are quite kind. I think Sheffield Wednesday have got a decent run of games. Obviously, Charlton, Burton, Lincoln away, Cambridge at home, Accrington at home, Gillingham away, and Cheltenham at home. So there's a potential that Sheffield Wednesday could have a really good run now. I do reckon they will get the top 6. I know that might upset you being a fellow Yorkshire club, but yeah, I can see Sheffield Wednesday getting to the top 6. They've got a good squad, good manager, and yeah, they're on a really good run.
Good evening to Dan. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Ian Bradley, their fan, Sheffield Wednesday, celebrated their win over the mighty Donny like they'd won the Champions League. Elsewhere, we're going to now talk about the final 2 teams that we're going to talk about this week who could potentially get into the playoffs. We're now going to talk about Ipswich Town, and that's not my bias being an Ipswich Town supporter. On Saturday, they won 3-0 at home to Burton Albion. Fantastic game. Caden Jackson scored his first goal in over 50 league games on the first minute. Then Wes Burns on the 62nd and Bursan Slina on the 78th. And yesterday they drew 0-0 against Cheltenham. So a lot of us Ipswich fans, and I'm not counting me here, but a lot of Ipswich fans on social media are saying that playoffs could potentially be over after that draw against Cheltenham. That isn't really the case because they're in good form at the moment. And if they pick up a couple of wins in their next game, especially against Morecambe, playoffs could potentially be back on.
Yeah, I don't understand the negativity. Like the 4 points outside the playoffs, and Sunderland and Plymouth, especially like Sunderland as well, they're dropping like stones, and Wycombe are struggling. Sheffield Wednesday are playing all right, like I said. So Ipswich have got every chance of getting the top 6. I don't understand the fans' negativity about it, but what I saw you post on social media earlier, Ben, there seems to be like this attitude now amongst Ipswich fans. It's just very pessimistic, and I can't fault that after the like the past 10 years of being an Ipswich fan. I can imagine it's been quite a bit of a dire time, but things looking up. You've got a really good squad, a really good young manager. I don't understand the pessimism. You've been on a great run as well. So from an Ipswich perspective, like what is the issue amongst the fans? Like why is their attitude like this?
I think it is the minority on social media, and I think the minority are like this because we've had a really bad couple of years. Of course, under Paul Lambert, we had an abysmal season 2 years ago. Paul Cook came in. He was, in my opinion, harshly treated by the club. I reckon he should have been given more time. But there's almost been this losing atmosphere in and amongst Ipswich due to the fact that we have been underperforming, and we were promised under our old owner Mark Evans that we would get into the championship earlier. So I do understand this like losing mentality, if you will. But at the same time, Kieran McKenna's done a fantastic job so far at Ipswich. A draw against Cheltenham isn't necessarily that bad, especially given the fact, and we'll talk about this later on in the show, Cheltenham did concede 5 goals over the weekend. So yeah, playoffs could still be back on. I'd actually give Kieran McKenna the benefit of a doubt if he didn't get into the playoffs. I don't know what anybody else in the chat thinks of that. But yeah, I reckon we're on very good form at the moment. There's a great atmosphere in the squad. And yeah, I mean, as an Ipswich Town fan, I'm really pleased with how we've been doing. So we're now going to talk about Bolton before finishing on Portsmouth. So Bolton, on Saturday, they won 4-0 at home to AFC Wimbledon. And yesterday, last night, they won 3-1 at home to Lincoln. So last week they lost 3-1 away from home at Burton, but they've managed to pick up their form again. Could Ian Everett's side potentially be underdogs to get into the playoffs?
Yeah, definitely. Only 5 points outside of it, aren't they? So you can't rule Bolton out of it. Over the last 10 games, they've been the joint top form team of the division, along with Rotherham, taking 25 points from their last 10 games. So yeah, things are looking really good for Bolton. The only thing I could think that's going to hold Bolton back is Ian Everett's, like, I don't want to say arrogance, but this boastful, I've got the best squad in the league. He hasn't. And I don't know if there's any Bolton fans in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think Bolton fans think they've got the best squad in the league. It's a good squad. It is a squad that should be competing for the top 6, but it's not a squad where you should be saying you've got the best team in the division. A lot of teams above them have better squads. So, 2 really good wins back-to-back. 4 wins from the last 5. And they are going to take some stopping out of the on-current form.
So do you reckon, because I remember last week when he told me that Ian Evatt had once again come out and said that he has the best squad in the league, do you reckon that is almost a culture that the manager needs to fix? Because you can't come out after every win and say those kind of things, can you?
I don't know why he does it. I don't know if it's the case of he's trying to boost his players' morale, like making them think they are world beaters and send them onto the pitch thinking they can beat anybody. But at the same time, you're setting them up for failure at the same time. So it's a very fine line when you're coming out with comments like that. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of it. But at the same time, if you're sending your players onto the pitch thinking they're invincible and they could beat anybody, sometimes it could be a good thing, but sometimes it can be very counterproductive. Like I said, it's a very fine line. So I think it'll split a lot of people down the middle of whether it's right or wrong to be coming out with comments like that.
Hello to everybody who's joined us in the chat. Hello to Mark Baker. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. John Fleming, good evening to you as well. Of course, get your questions in. We will get to them at the very end of the show. And the final team we're going to talk about in regards to promotion before we go into David for the bottom half of the table will be Portsmouth. So Danny Cowley, he's had, in my opinion, a bang average season so far. They didn't play on Saturday due to storm damage at Crewe Alexandra, but yesterday they won 2-1 away at home against Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury actually scored first in that game. Luke Lehigh scored in the 14th minute, and Aidan O'Brien for Portsmouth scored in the 29th minute, then Louis Thompson on the 84th. So Portsmouth, they're far too inconsistent, in my opinion. They go on runs where they keep winning, and then they'll go on a run where they just kind of dip, draw a couple of games, and then lose some as well. Are we writing them off for playoffs? I know anything is possible, but they're far too inconsistent, aren't they?
It's a weird one with Portsmouth. They're too patchy for me to get top 6, but at the same time, if I'm considering Bolton having a chance at the playoffs, I've got to say the same for Portsmouth. They are 9 points outside at the minute, and they've got 3 games in hand. So again, win all 3, level points with Sunderland, but they're too patchy for my liking. There's been periods over the season where we think, right, they've finally turned the corner. They're going on good runs. But yeah, I don't get what the issue is with Sunderland, why they can't sustain a run. They got decent players. It's probably one of the weaker Portsmouth sides that has been in League One the last few years. But I think with Danny Cowley, I think he needs to be given a bit more time. I think give him a bit more into next season, give him another transfer window, and see how things go. So yeah, it's if you're a Portsmouth fan, I'd love to know what your actual opinion is this season so far, because I was expecting much better things from you this season, but yeah, it's not quite panned out that way, is it?
So just finally, just to wrap up this segment of the show, Danny Cowley admitted in his post-match press conference that he regretted taking off centre-back Hayden Carter during their win away to Shrewsbury. It's good to see managers being this honest, isn't it, David? I reckon that should he be given time and another transfer window, he will get things right.
Yeah, definitely. It is refreshing to see managers being honest and giving a good opinion, because I think so long, like, I hate managers who come out and blame everything but their own performance, like blaming referees, weather, pitch conditions. It really, really annoys me. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, I've mentioned it a few times on the show, but I don't mention it very often. I'm a huge rugby league fan. Big fan of Wigan Warriors for anyone that follows it as well. So if you ever get the chance, if you're not familiar with rugby league, watch your game, then watch the coaches, the interviews straight after the game on the pitch. They give you brutally honest opinions, but at the same time, they're very honest in their assessments of the game. If they played crap, they'll tell you they played crap. Always credit the opposition when they played well. And it's something I'd like to see come more into football a bit more. Credit the opposition if they outplayed you. Call your own players out. Call out your team if it's necessary. And yeah, that's my 2 cents on that anyway.
And of course, that was the top half of the table for this week. Again, thank you very much to everybody who's joined us in chat. Good evening, Ben Morris. Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. But now, as you're accustomed to, I'm really bad at doing segues. So, David, take it away with the bottom half of the table.
Yeah, no problem at all. I've just seen the comment from Ben. Hope I'm not too late to get a question. Yeah, you're never too late, Ben, to get a question in. So, yeah, pop your question into the live chat. We'll cover it later in the show. So you're never too late until we actually hit the end broadcast button. We'll happily get your we'll happily answer any questions that you've got regarding that. The place to start in terms of relegation this week is definitely Morecambe. Yeah, so Stephen Robinson's left the club. That happened, I think it was on Tuesday morning. I know the news broke on Monday evening that Morecambe reluctantly allowed him permission to speak to St Mirren. And then the news was confirmed on Tuesday morning from St Mirren that he got the job. Stephen Robinson did say their pursuit of him made it very difficult to turn him down. Just read a few more quotes from his interview once given the job. He said it just came about very suddenly. It wasn't something I was searching for. I certainly didn't apply, but I got an approach from St Mirren mid-afternoon on Monday. When someone makes that bigger play for you, which St Mirren did, and made it very clear they wanted me, I thought it was right to speak to them. It was something I found very, very difficult to turn down. It's a club I've admired from afar, and I've always thought about the atmosphere in the stadium and the training ground. What do you make of that appointment? Like, obviously, I'm ditching Morecambe, who are in the bottom four of League One, for a stint in the SPL.
A very weird move, really, because, you know, he wasn't at Morecambe for very long as well. When you actually look at it, he was more or less there for half a season.
Yeah.
So, yeah, disappointing, really, because he had done a good job at Morecambe, and had he have kept them up, that would have been an absolutely huge achievement, given, and I mean this with all due respect, the stature of Morecambe's club. Yeah, his move to St Mirren, a little bit confusing. He does love Scottish football, as he did previously manage before Morecambe at Motherwell. But then again, you know, that's almost a bit of a step back, really, because I don't think keeping St Mirren in the Scottish Championship is as big of an achievement as keeping Morecambe in League One. So, yeah, baffled by the move. I think Morecambe fans are quite rightly furious about this because it was very, very unexpected. And again, it is a very confusing move as well. But Morecambe, depending on who takes over at the club, hopefully they do stay up. So I do like them as a club. They have some very good young players too. And sadly, and it's a real shame really, but Stephen Robinson has ended his tenure at the club on a very, very sour note. Is that fair to say, David?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be welcome back at it's a Globe Arena now, Morecambe.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be welcome back there anytime soon. So it's such a strange. I think when Stephen Robinson got the job, it was a very left field appointment because if people remember rightly, I think at one point Keith Hill was nailed on for the job at Morecambe. If I remember, at one point, and Stephen Robinson's name came at the 11th hour, and he got that job. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. But looking at the current betting odds, obviously, Ben, you're more privy to this, and obviously, I think you've looked at it prior to me looking at it. Me and one of my mates, when we went to watch Rochdale last night, we debated who was going to get the job, and Derek Adams was one of the names we mentioned. I didn't know he was currently the massive odds-on favourite of the bookmakers to get the job. We were wondering whether he's the right person to go back, given the way he left in the summer as well, very similar circumstances to Stephen Robinson. Does it shock you, Ben, to see Derek Adams as the overwhelming favourite, given the way he left the club in the summer? I know he was one who got them promoted in the first place, but he did leave under a bit of a dark cloud, really, didn't he?
Yeah, I'd love to know if there are any Morecambe fans in the live chat at the moment, how you'd feel about getting Derek Adams back in. Because he left on such a sour note, he left on such a volatile note as well, which didn't do him any favours, that if I was a Morecambe fan, I'd be very disappointed to see him back. He's a good manager, didn't do well at Bradford, but did terrifically before that at Plymouth, where he got them promoted into League One. But the problem that I have with Derek Adams is, and this may sound really harsh, so call me out if I'm wrong, but I think he's quite a volatile character. I think he's very, very outspoken. And I think he's not afraid to almost stand up for himself, really, and speak out against the fans. Now, I think that should he return to Morecambe, he will almost end up with egg on his face because he was very outspoken when he left the club. And for him to join back at them, that could potentially, again, backfire on him massively. But again, he did get them promoted from League Two, so maybe it would be a blessing in disguise to have him back again. A man who knows the club, a man who got them promoted, and they've kept most of the squad that they had. Okay, they sold a few of the big names, but they've kept most of their squad from when they got promoted from League Two. Elsewhere, Steve Evans is 8-1. He's second favourites to go into the job. I'd quite like to see Steve Evans go to Morecambe. He could be a good fit. Simon Grayson, who I think we've both been very critical on, he's third favourite. He's 14-1 at the moment. I don't think Simon Grayson would be a good fit at all, but let us know in the chat if you think he would be. And a very, very random one, Robbie Fowler. I don't know whether he's still managing at East Bengal, but he's 14-1. And David, I don't know about you, but I don't think Robbie Fowler would take over.
To be fair, he has been putting his name about for a lot of jobs in the lower league, so it doesn't shock me to see his name in the mix for that job. I'm just looking to see where we were last at. So yeah, East Bengal, Brisbane Roar, and Wangathong United. So yet to have any form of experience over here in terms of his football, his managerial career. Obviously, he did a lot in his footballing career, didn't he, prior to that. But yeah, I don't see him getting the job personally. I kind of disagree about Simon Grayson. He did a poor job at Fleetwood, but I think Morecambe's kind of his level now. I think he could go and do a half-decent job. But the two front runners in Derek Adams and Steve Evans, as a polite way of putting it, the two are the more unpopular men in the lower leagues for the management. I think it's the kindest way I can say it. So I think if ever any of those two are to get the job, I don't think Morecambe would be a much loved club for having them in the dugout. But yeah, there'll be a very interesting appointment regardless. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who ends up in that one. Right, so we've bored you to death a little bit on Morecambe. We have given them quite a lot of coverage, and it is very interesting what's happened. So watch this space. We'll see what happens there over the coming weeks. It only feels like a matter of a few weeks ago, weren't it, that we pretty much wrote Doncaster off and told them to plan for life in League Two, but they continue to find these really good results from nowhere. Obviously beat MK Dons, beat Sunderland away, won away at Lincoln last week. Disappointing result against Sheffield Wednesday from their perspective, but they did bounce back on Tuesday night with a really good 2-0 win at Accrington. So they brought themselves back in with contention of staying up. 4 points from safety, but they have played 2 games more than some of their nearest rivals. So do you think Doncaster have got a chance of getting up now? They've hit a bit of patchy form as opposed to losing every week.
Yeah, Accrington are a team who are beatable in my opinion, but Gary McSheffrey, if we could quickly talk about him, he's done a fantastic job, really, with no prior managerial experience. I think he's definitely done himself some credit, especially keeping Doncaster at least in the race just to stay up. But when you, again, I speak about this every week, but when you look at Doncaster's squad, they have got some very, very good players. Tommy Rowe, who used to play for Bristol City, he played a big part in Bristol City a couple of years ago. He's playing for them. He's about 32 years old, don't forget. They have Kyle Noyle, who used to play for West Ham. He's still a young player, don't forget. So when you look at this Doncaster squad, you kind of have to scratch your head and wonder, how did they get into this position? Don't forget, they also have Kieran Agard, who used to play for the MK Dons. So on paper, they do have a very good squad. If McSheffrey can keep them up, then they have a lot of foundations to build upon, because you've got a mixture between good players and youngsters as well. But I think at the moment, if you're the manager, you're not really thinking about survival. You're thinking about, well, basically you're taking it game after game, if that makes sense. You're probably taking each fixture as they come. So Doncaster, they've surprised me, to be honest, but not really at the same time if you look at their squad. They're away from home at AFC Wimbledon on Saturday, so hopefully that is a winnable game for them. I'm sure we'll talk about AFC Wimbledon later on in the show. But yeah, Doncaster, hopefully they do stay out, because if you look at their squad, they have a fantastic squad. And at the same time, I don't know how they got into this possession, especially given how well they did last year.
Yeah, I think the reason why they're in that position is because they kept all the Richie Wellens for too long, but an opinion we've spouted many a time. But like Ian has said in the comments, McSheffrey's Rovers are at least having a go. 100% Ian. I think if you're in that position, all you want to do at that point is, if you resign yourself to relegation, you just want to see a bit of fight from the players, the manager, and everyone involved in the club. You just want to see a bit. You want to see a bit of passion. If you are going to go down swinging. And Doncaster are definitely doing that at the minute, and they have given themselves a bit of a chance of still getting out of it. So yeah, long way to go again. They have played a couple more games more, which could be a benefit soon, because they're not having to play Saturday, Tuesday, like a lot of their rivals. So they could be going into their games a lot more refreshed than some of their opponents. So that might work in their favour as well. But we'll wait and see over the coming weeks and remaining months of the season. I think I kind of stuck my neck on the line last week and said I think Gillingham were going to get the bottom four. And they've gone and let me down with two really disappointing defeats back-to-back. The home loss against Plymouth and then the home draw against Eyriey Wimbledon. What's gone on there, Ben? Because Neil Harris had a really promising start, and it just seems to be back to same old Gillingham, really, doesn't it?
We speak about the losing culture a lot when we talk about League One clubs, and I think Gillingham have very much got that losing culture, basically because of how poor their season have been. And when you have such a poor season, it's easy just to keep your head down, just to kind of carry on mentally performing at the levels you were previously playing at. Now, Neil Harris is a great manager. If they do go down, they'll definitely keep him in League Two. I reckon he'd want to stay as well. But at the same time, you kind of have to question whether he should be doing better there himself. But you have to give him credit. He's at least tried. He hasn't been at the club very long, so you would definitely give him much more time. But yeah, I mean, as I just said, I think with Gillingham, the season has simply caught up with them. They've had such a poor season that it's almost inevitable that there's going to be a few heads dropping at the moment. They have lost, of course, a few key players due to injury, which isn't great at all when you look at their like games coming up. They play Lincoln on Saturday, then Bolton next week. So yeah, a couple of really difficult games coming up. Again, they have lost some very big players as well. That is definitely not going to give them any boost, really. Danny Lloyd was a great player for them. He's out injured at the moment. So with Gillingham, as you can probably hear right now, I'm not sure what's really gone wrong with them. I can point my fingers at the number of games that they've lost this season. But again, they could easily go and win their next two games. Gillingham are more than capable of doing so. So, David, what do you reckon's gone wrong at Gillingham? And do you reckon that Gillingham are going to stay down, or do you reckon that they could potentially survive?
I think to answer the first question of what's gone wrong, I think the big thing for me this season is when Steve Evans was approached from Stevenage and the club wanted to speak to Steve Evans, he wanted to go at that point. They should have let him go at that point. I think personally, hold on to a manager who didn't want to be there. There was a golden opportunity there to get money in for a manager, compensation-wise, for a manager that A, didn't want to be there, and two, the club was failing under him at that point. They should have took the money and got somebody else at that point, but instead they rejected all the approaches and sacked him like a month later. So that decision to this day still baffles my mind as to why the club did that. Evans, I think any manager's going to do that. They're going to hold out for that. You don't see many managers opting just to resign anymore. It's either mutual consent or sacking. A lot of managers do want to hold out for the paydays, and I think from a fan, it's a bit of a shitter when you kind of put it like that. But at the same time, I think most of us in that situation would hold out for the compensation pay. Personally, I know I would. Whether you want to question my morality on things like that, it's up to you. But yeah, they should have got rid of it at that point. But yeah, it's just been an absolute, to put it politely, a big shit show at Gillingham all season, hasn't it, Ben?
Yeah, agreed. And I think you're spot on with Steve Evans. Now, again, Steve Evans isn't the most popular manager in League One. He's a bit of a footballing villain, really. But to lose his head and kind of get distracted by the Stevenage job isn't very good at all. And that kind of tells you where his priorities at that moment were, especially given the fact that at that very moment in time, when he did have his head turned by the Stevenage job, they were in very much the same position that they were in now. So, yeah, it's just been a very calamitous season, really, for Gillingham. And I've got to be honest, when you look at their squad, then you do kind of have to question whether they had a strong enough squad in the first place to really stay up. I don't know whether that's a really harsh statement or not, David. Do you reckon they've got a strong enough squad?
It's not a bad squad. It's definitely lower half of League One. I think last season they massively punched above the weight. But yeah, losing Kyle Dempsey as well, it was a big loss to them as well. But yeah, it's a squad I don't think there was any lower mid-table. I think it was the best they could have hoped for this season. But yeah, I still think they're still underperforming, I think, to a degree. But yeah, they still get every chance. Only 5 points from safety, so long way to go. Last team we're going to have a look at, because we have focused heavily on the bottom four this week. Last team I'll focus on before we move into the question and answer part of the show is AFC Wimbledon. They have been on a dreadful run of form. They're yet to register a league win in 2022. Their last win came at the start of December in a 2-0 win away from Accrington, and they've not won a game since in all competitions. Ben, what's going wrong with AFC Wimbledon? Because a really, really disappointing result against Gillingham on Tuesday night. So, yeah, what do you think of that one?
Yeah, now just real quickly, I did a bit of writing for AFC Wimbledon a couple of weeks ago. So if you find that online, then give it a quick read. But AFC Wimbledon, I've always said that they're very happy just to kind of like chug along in League One, just to kind of go about in their own pace. But at the same time, they're never a team who you expect to really set the world alight in League One. If you had told me at the start of the season that they were going to get relegated, then I wouldn't have been surprised necessarily, because again, they're not really a squad who have a lot of depth. They do have some very talented players. They've developed some very talented players like Joe Pigott from last season, but at the same time, again, they're not blessed with the budget that, say, a Sunderland might have or an Ipswich might have. So of course there's going to be those restraints right there. Mark Robinson, look, I've got to give him credit. He's a manager who didn't have any prior experience of playing football, if that makes sense. He didn't have a professional career, and he didn't really have a very big CV before he even became manager of AFC Wimbledon. I was going to use the analogy that it's a bit like you and I taking over a job on Football Manager, but he's got a bit more experience than that, so he's a bit better than we give credit for. But again, like he's done okay, I guess. Like AFC Wimbledon fans aren't thrilled with how they've been doing, but I don't think they're up in arms either. I think they're expected to be where they are at the moment, and should they stay up, then great. I think they could easily stay up, because when you look at the 4 teams below them, they're arguably worse than they are. But they do kind of like need to pick up the pace as well, because they're a team who could easily pick up a few points in the next couple of games. They play Wigan on Saturday. They'll definitely lose that. No, they play Doncaster, beg my pardon, on Saturday. They should win that one. Then the week after, they play Wigan, which is a game that they'll potentially lose. But yeah, AFC Wimbledon, they could sleep their way into relegation, but at the same time, I reckon they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at their fixtures now. I think once they get the Wigan game out of the way, they play the Plymouth the game after. After that, it's not that bad of a run-in. But Wimbledon never start playing until at least March anyway. So if you go off the previous seasons, they never hit form until middle of March, and they always go on that amazing run. So yeah, be very interesting to see how Wimbledon get on over the next few weeks. We're going to move over onto the questions part of the show. So thank you very much for everyone who's got involved in the live chat. We only had the one on Twitter this week. I'll cover off that now. So do you think it's from Dan Green, do you think Darren Ferguson will be back in League One after resigning at Peterborough? Do you expect to see Darren Ferguson crop back up in League One anytime soon?
Yeah, I reckon that is a real possibility, really, because he is a manager who's proven in League One. He's been at Peterborough on 3 separate occasions. So I reckon that kind of closes his chapter managing over at Peterborough. But when you look at teams who could potentially be looking for managers in the future, Morecambe, they're looking for a manager at the moment. You could maybe argue that Darren Ferguson might be interested in that squad and that team, but it might be a bit too soon for him. But yeah, I reckon he will either pop up in League Two or League One because there is a vacancy at Bradford at the moment. But yeah, I'd be happy to see him back in the league. He's a very good manager. Of course, he gets a lot of inspiration from his father, so he does have his father to turn to, for tips and that. But yeah, I mean, there aren't many vacancies going at the moment, so I don't know how long it'll be before we see him back in League One again. Do you reckon, David, that he'll be managing again soon in the league, or do you reckon that he could potentially move over to Bradford, or maybe even in League One, Morecambe?
I don't expect him to drop into League Two, and I definitely don't expect to see him at Morecambe. I don't think we'll see him again this season unless something big comes up in League One. He is a top manager for League One. I don't think anyone in the Championship will take a punt on him. I think you're probably talking top half of League One. If a job was to come available, then you might see him filling time. Like you say, he'll probably lean on his dad a little bit for some advice as to his next move. But yeah, top half of League One, I think, is where I expect to see him in his next job anyway. If he turns up at Morecambe this season, I will go to Morecambe and dance around naked because that's not going to happen. So, yeah, really good manager. But yeah, I don't think we'll see him again this season. I think he'll take a bit of a break and assess his options again in the summer. So we'll move over to the questions in on the live chat. So the first question that we had for ourselves was from Mark Baker regarding Charlton. So why are Charlton in such a mess? Defeat after defeat, and even when it's not a defeat, it is a poor performance and discontent from the fans too. So yeah, we haven't talked about Charlton, I think, this week, or I don't think we discussed them last week either. So it's a team that we haven't really given much attention to lately. So thank you for that one, Mark. Yeah, 4 league defeats on the bounce, but I am going to cut Charlton a little bit of slack before I come to you, Ben, on this one. Then 4 defeats are against 4 of the sides. Sorry, 4 of the top 5 sides for forming the division. MK Dons, Oxford, Wigan, and Bolton. So can you really put it down to Charlton playing like the best teams in division currently on form, or do you think there's a bit more to it than that, Ben?
Yeah, to be fair, I think you're spot on. Though I don't think the 3-5-2 system does Johnny Jackson any favours because he's very much kept to the same system that Nigel Adkins had. And if you play 3 at the back, then depending on the quality that you have, it could potentially go a bit sour for them. So I reckon even Johnny Jackson has actually come out and said that he's made a bit of a mistake, for playing that system and for playing 3 at the back. But yeah, I mean, Charlton, look, they've had a rough season. I don't think they've done too badly lately, considering who they've been playing against and who they've been up against. They do sit 16th at the moment, but they're in no danger of relegation, in my opinion. Playoffs is obviously probably out of the equation at the moment, so we won't be talking about them in regards to potentially playoffs. But yeah, there's not much to really say in regards to Charlton because, again, it would be very, very harsh to judge them over their last couple of results because MK Dons are in red hot form at the moment, as you said, David. Oxford United, they've been absolutely unstoppable at the moment, and they did have a red card in that game as well, Charlton. And Wigan, away from home against Wigan, you're definitely going to struggle. So they do have a couple of really tough fixtures coming up. Actually, they play Sheffield Wednesday away from home on Saturday, but I don't know whether you'd agree with me here, David, but Sheffield Wednesday are still a very inconsistent team, so you could potentially pick 3 points up there. But then on the 5th of March, which is also a Saturday, they play Sunderland at home. Sunderland have been in very bad form lately, but you would have thought that Sunderland would at least have picked up a few points come that game. So yeah, I mean, a couple of tough fixtures coming up. Charlton will want to get some points on the board too, because Connor Washington has kind of dried up a little bit. He was in good form when Johnny Jackson was managing as a caretaker at the club. But yeah, again, I don't think it could be too harsh to Charlton. I reckon Johnny Jackson's done a good job, all things considered.
Yeah, next question is from Dan Green. How did Doncaster pull off that 2-0 win at Accrington? Seriously. I think it's a case of Accrington being very, very hit and miss, and Doncaster have caught them off and off on and off night. I don't think it's that spectacular result in the grand scheme of things. It's one of those that if Doncaster are to stay up, it's the kind of result they should be getting. That's me personally anyway on that one, but we've already covered Doncaster a bit of detail, Dan, so I hope that we answer that question a bit more in detail earlier in the show for you. Next question is from Mark Baker. So I'll come to you on this one, Ben. Bolton's turnaround from near death 2 years ago to where they are now, playing attractive football and getting results is incredible. Do you think they had the best January transfer window?
Yeah, they had a very good January transfer window, but they can't get too ahead of themselves. As Bolton are very, very good at getting too ahead of themselves. So yeah, great transfer window. They're a team who, out of nowhere, became potential playoff underdogs. But look, there's still a lot of the season to go. So I reckon it's be a kind of jumping ahead if we were to say, look, they will get into the playoffs based off their upheaval in form and their transfers. So yeah, they've done a good job. Ian Evatt, I'm still not convinced by him. I reckon he does kind of like draw every now and then a dagger through his own foot, but you never know. He knows what he's doing. He's managed in the league before, and you need that really. So yeah, Bolton, good team. Not the best team in League One. That would be very, very daft to say. Sorry, Ian, but potential playoff underdogs.
Yeah, say the comment straight after that from Ian Bradley made me chuckle. Well, having the best team in the league, so the upturn in form is expected, is it not? Yeah, say if it is the best team in this division, then yeah, Ian Evatt's run of form here shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, should it? Next question from John Fleming. Am I the only one who thinks Sunderland are on such a slide now that will fail to make the playoffs? Just so poor to watch and such a mess off the field. What do you think on that one, Ben?
Yeah, Sunderland, I've always kind of like pointed a lot of their problems to their owners because it's an absolute circus in the boardroom at the moment. Nobody knows what's going on. But the fans did think that they did know what was going on and they were thinking positively about their own club. It immediately comes out that their alleged owner only owns 40% of the club. I think that's right. So yeah, like you don't really know what's going on at Sunderland. Really, it's a real shame to see where they are at the moment. But you've got to point fingers at their decision to sack Lee Johnson. Daft decision in hindsight, really. I know a couple of weeks ago I did agree with them and I was saying, oh yeah, sacking Lee Johnson could be a blessing in disguise. But I take back those comments as I think it was very, very daft indeed. When you look at where they are now, 5 games without a win, they're not doing too well at all. And yeah, I reckon you are right by saying that they could potentially slip out of the playoffs for teams in better form at the moment, like Sheffield Wednesday or even Ipswich.
The next question is from Ben Morris. I want to know which team in League One do you think is most overachieving this season? The examples he's given: MK Dons, Rotherham, Oxford, or someone else.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Could you quickly repeat the question a minute?
Yeah. So, which team in League One do you think is most overachieving this season?
Most overachieving, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, the most overachieving squad in League One. I mean, I would say Wycombe, but I think a lot of people, especially considering last season, would expect Wycombe just to permanently be in the higher echelons of League One. So I'm going to probably say Cambridge United, purely because of the fact that they are a newly promoted team and they have done incredibly well. Good youngsters in their squad, a very good young manager in Bonner as well. And again, they've got a player in Jack Lancaster, who I'm a big fan of. Cheltenham as well, to finish 15th or to be in 15th is actually quite impressive, really, as they're not a huge squad too. But the team that I'm going to pick is Plymouth, purely because they've stayed in the playoffs despite a lot of fans saying, okay, they'll probably drop off. They could still drop off. There's still time to drop off. But they've won 4 of their last 5 games. They're still in good form and they're still a very good squad. So I'm going to pick Plymouth.
Just to be a bit different, to be fair, I was going to say the MK Dons anyway. Expect them to have an half decent season, but I didn't expect them to be third at this stage of the season and the run they're on. So I'll go with MK Dons on that one. Once my live chat catches up, we'll move on to the next one. Gillingham nil, AFC Wimbledon nil. Is that the sort of result that sums up why Gills are going down? Yeah, I think we kind of already covered that, Mark, in terms of what's going on with Gillingham on and off the pitch. So, yeah, I think that result does sum them up perfectly, unfortunately. I think that could be all. Yeah, John Fleming, will the League Two show be back tomorrow as a likes fan? I'm starting to feel positive about football again. Yeah, it will be back tomorrow. We only took last Thursday off because Ben was struggling with COVID. So as you can hear, he is back fighting fit. So yeah, we'll be back tomorrow with the League Two show. We will be talking about Oldham in a bit of detail, John, so we'll be looking forward to that. And I'll try and avoid talking about Rochdale, the way things are going at the moment. Last question, I think, is from Josh Lane. So, Ben, what do you think of the job that Kieran McKenna has done at Ipswich?
So yeah, thank you for the well wishes last week, by the way. I'm a lot better now, so very glad to be back here. But yeah, Kieran McKenna was funny because I think I said it on Twitter a few days ago that Man United fans have egg on their faces almost, because they were pointing under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They were pointing fingers at McKenna, saying that he was the problem for his quote-unquote schoolboy approach to coaching. But he's proved a lot of those fans wrong. I know a lot of Manchester United fans are going to say, oh, but it's League One. League One is this level. But in my opinion, managing in League One is probably tougher than managing in the Premier League, purely due to the fact that you don't get you don't get big budgets, you don't get world-class coaching staff, and you don't necessarily get the resources you would get at bigger clubs. So McKenna's done a fantastic job at the club. I was listening to him live on Radio Suffolk last night, and he said that he's installed a culture in the dressing room that they didn't necessarily have beforehand. And you can see that on the pitch. You can see how close players are to each other on the pitch. And you have to give him credit for that. You have to give him credit for turning a lot of the players' heads around and for giving the squad a new lease of life. Okay, a lot of the fans are still negative, as we spoke about earlier on in the show. But no offense, Ipswich fans, you'll get that with them almost, because there's been so many negative things to talk about in the last couple of years that a few fans are still thinking negatively. But just to sum up my thoughts on Kieran McKenna, he's done a fantastic job. If he didn't get us promoted this season, then fear not really, because these things do happen and it wouldn't necessarily be a heartbreaking thing to happen as well. But yeah, he's done a fantastic job and I'm very, very pleased with him.
Just to wrap up, one last comment from Steve Timms. Hi, lads. I know they're tuning in from the start of these shows, but Sunderland have got me hating football at the moment. Just wanted to drop by and say, keep up the good work. I'll be back watching soon. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same at the minute, Steve, with the way Rochdale are playing. I've kind of fallen out of love with League One, League Two, and everything at the moment. But obviously, it's still great doing these shows and getting chatting with you guys. So, yeah, hope to see you back in the live chat soon with some more positivity regarding Sunderland. That's everything for this week. Another League One show done and dusted. We will be back tomorrow with the League Two show, so make sure you are back to watch us for that one. In the meantime, if you do want to come check us out at www.otbfootball.net for all the latest articles we get out down League One, League Two, and anything that you want to read about football, we always have that covered. Also, make sure you head over to the Twitter page at OverTheBarFB. Like I said, we got all the new content shared on there, all the new videos, articles, anything else we find interesting for you, we'll get onto the Twitter page. Also, if you are watching live on Twitter or you listen to the audio only versions of the show, make sure you head over to youtube.com/overthebarfb or just search for Over the Bar and it'll take you straight to the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. You get notified of all our latest content. Myself and Ben and anything else Over the Bar does, so make sure you head over for that. But that is everything for another week. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow with the League Two show and back next Wednesday with another episode of the League One show. Just before we do go, thank you all again very much for the support and we'll see you all very, very soon.